Power is a word that often makes people uncomfortable. Some associate it with control, manipulation, or authority. Others believe it belongs only to politicians, business leaders, or influential people. However, Robert Greene begins the 48 Laws of Power by presenting a different perspective. He explains that power exists wherever people interact. Whether in the workplace, business, friendships, or everyday life, influence shapes many of the decisions we make and the opportunities we receive. According to the author, understanding power does not mean becoming dishonest or manipulative. Instead, it means becoming aware of the social dynamics that already exist around us. Many people assume that talent and hard work alone guarantee success. While these qualities are certainly valuable, the author argues that they are not always enough. History shows countless examples of highly talented individuals who were overlooked, while others with stronger communication skills, better relationships, and greater influence achieved remarkable success. This does not happen by accident. People naturally respond not only to ability, but also to confidence, reputation, timing, and perception. One of the central ideas introduced in the book is that human nature has changed very little throughout history. Although technology, governments, and societies continue to evolve, many human emotions remain the same. People still seek respect. They still compete for opportunities. They still value trust, recognition, and influence. For this reason, the author believes that many lessons from history remain surprisingly relevant today. Rather than viewing power as something negative, Robert Greene encourages readers to see it as a skill that can be understood and used responsibly. Knowing how people think, communicate, and respond to different situations can help us avoid unnecessary conflicts, build stronger relationships, and make better decisions. Another important idea introduced in the opening chapters is that perception often shapes reality. People usually react to what they believe is true, even before they know every fact. Because of this, the way we present ourselves, communicate with others, and build our reputation can influence how opportunities appear throughout our lives. The author also reminds readers that power is not gained overnight. It is built gradually through patience, observation, self-control, and an understanding of human behavior. Those who react impulsively often lose influence. Those who remain calm, think strategically, and understand the people around them are usually in a stronger position to achieve their goals. As the book continues, Robert Greene introduces a series of principles drawn from history, politics, business, and leadership. These ideas are not presented as rigid rules that must always be followed. Instead, they encourage readers to think more carefully about influence, decision-making, and the complex relationships that shape everyday life. In the next chapter, we'll explore why understanding people is often more valuable than trying to control them, and how awareness of human behavior can become one of the greatest sources of personal influence. After introducing the idea that power exists in every human interaction, Robert Greene shifts the focus toward one of the most important skills anyone can develop: the ability to understand people. According to the author, many individuals spend their lives trying to change the behavior of others. They argue, they criticize, they try to convince people through force or emotion. Yet these approaches often create resistance rather than cooperation. Robert Greene explains that influence begins with observation, not control. Before making decisions, it is important to understand what motivates the people around us. Every person is influenced by different desires. Some seek recognition. Others value security. Some are motivated by ambition. Others simply want respect and appreciation. Recognizing these differences allows us to communicate more effectively. The author argues that successful leaders, negotiators, and entrepreneurs rarely rely on authority alone. Instead, they pay close attention to people's emotions, habits, and behavior. They observe before they speak. They listen before they react. This patience often gives them a clearer understanding of situations that others misunderstand. Another lesson introduced in this section is the importance of emotional control. People who react immediately to criticism, anger, or disappointment often reveal more than they intend. Strong emotions can cloud judgment and lead to decisions that are later regretted. The author encourages readers to remain calm during difficult situations. Responding thoughtfully is often more effective than reacting emotionally. Robert Greene also explains that first impressions and reputation have a powerful influence on human relationships. Whether in business, at work, or in everyday life, people naturally form opinions based on what they see and experience. For this reason, building a reputation for honesty, reliability, and professionalism can create opportunities long before any conversation begins. However, reputation requires continuous care. It can take years to build and only moments to damage. The author encourages readers to protect their credibility by acting consistently and avoiding unnecessary conflicts that could weaken trust. Another valuable idea is that people are more likely to support those who make them feel respected and understood. Most individuals enjoy speaking about their own experiences, ideas, and achievements. Listening carefully and showing genuine interest often creates stronger relationships than constantly trying to impress others. Influence is rarely achieved by talking the most. It is often achieved by understanding the most. Throughout history, many successful individuals gained influence not because they possessed the greatest strength, but because they understood human nature better than those around them. They recognized patterns of behavior, they anticipated reactions, and they adapted their approach instead of expecting everyone else to change. Perhaps the greatest lesson from this chapter is that lasting influence does not come from controlling people. It comes from understanding them. The better we understand human behavior, the wiser our decisions become. And the wiser our decisions become, the greater our ability to build trust, solve problems, and lead others effectively. In the next chapter, we'll explore why reputation is one of the most valuable assets a person can possess, and how it quietly shapes opportunities, relationships, and long-term success. After explaining the importance of understanding people, Robert Greene introduces another principle that appears repeatedly throughout history: the importance of reputation. According to the author, reputation is one of the most valuable assets a person can possess. Unlike money or status, it cannot be purchased overnight. It is built slowly through consistent actions, honest behavior, and the way others experience us over time. Whether in business, leadership, or everyday life, people often make decisions based on reputation before they have enough information to judge someone personally. A strong reputation creates trust. Trust creates opportunities, and opportunities often lead to success. The author explains that this process has remained unchanged for centuries. Merchants who developed a reputation for honesty attracted more customers. Military leaders known for discipline earned the confidence of their soldiers. Business owners who consistently delivered quality products built loyal customers. In every case, reputation became an invisible advantage. Robert Greene also reminds readers that reputation works in both directions. A positive reputation can open doors that would otherwise remain closed. A negative reputation can create obstacles long before a conversation even begins. For this reason, protecting your credibility should always be treated as a long-term investment. Another important lesson discussed in this chapter is consistency. People naturally trust individuals whose actions remain predictable. When words and actions match over time, confidence grows. However, if someone frequently changes their behavior, breaks promises, or acts without integrity, trust begins to disappear. Once lost, rebuilding that trust can require years of patient effort. The author also explains that reputation should never be confused with pretending to be someone you are not. Lasting influence comes from genuine character supported by consistent behavior. Trying to create a false image may produce short-term attention, but it rarely survives careful observation. Authenticity supported by discipline is far more sustainable than appearances alone. Another valuable idea introduced in this section is the importance of avoiding unnecessary conflicts. Many people damage their own reputation by reacting emotionally, arguing publicly, or allowing temporary frustration to influence permanent decisions. The author encourages readers to choose their battles carefully. Not every disagreement deserves a response. Sometimes maintaining dignity and remaining calm protects your reputation far more effectively than trying to win every argument. Robert Greene also points out that successful people often allow their work to strengthen their reputation instead of constantly seeking recognition. Consistent results naturally attract respect. Over time, actions become more convincing than words. Perhaps the greatest lesson from this chapter is that reputation is built every single day. Every conversation, every decision, every promise that is kept. And every challenge handled with integrity adds another layer to the way people remember us. A good reputation cannot guarantee success, but it often creates opportunities that talent alone cannot. In the next chapter, we'll explore why emotional self-control is one of the greatest forms of personal power, and how learning to think before reacting can lead to better decisions in every area of life. After discussing the importance of reputation, Robert Greene introduces another quality that separates thoughtful decision-makers from impulsive ones: emotional control. According to the author, emotions are a natural part of being human. Fear, anger, excitement, jealousy, and frustration influence every person's decisions at some point in life. The problem is not having emotions. The problem is allowing emotions to make important decisions for us. Throughout history, many talented leaders, successful entrepreneurs, and powerful rulers lost everything because they acted in moments of anger or pride. A single emotional decision often destroyed years of careful planning. For this reason, Robert Greene encourages readers to create a habit of pausing before reacting. When people receive criticism, face rejection, or experience conflict, their first reaction is often emotional. They may argue immediately, defend themselves without thinking, or make decisions they later regret. The author believes that patience creates an advantage. A calm response usually reveals more wisdom than an immediate reaction. Another important lesson in this chapter is that emotions can make people predictable. When someone becomes angry easily, others quickly learn how to provoke them. When someone constantly seeks approval, others may learn how to influence their decisions. Understanding your own emotional patterns reduces the chances of being controlled by them. Robert Greene explains that self-awareness is one of the strongest forms of personal strength. People who understand their emotions are better prepared to manage difficult situations. They do not ignore their feelings. Instead, they recognize them without allowing those feelings to take control. The author also reminds readers that silence can sometimes be more powerful than speaking immediately. Not every criticism requires an answer. Not every disagreement requires an argument. Choosing the right moment to respond often produces better results than reacting without reflection. Another valuable idea discussed in this section is the importance of separating temporary emotions from permanent decisions. A business partnership should not end because of one frustrating conversation. A career decision should not be made during a single difficult day. Important choices deserve clear thinking, not emotional pressure. The author encourages readers to give themselves time whenever possible. As emotions settle, better judgment usually follows. History repeatedly shows that many of the greatest leaders remained calm during moments of uncertainty. While others panicked, they observed. While others reacted, they planned. Their greatest strength was not physical power. It was emotional discipline. Perhaps the biggest lesson from this chapter is that real power begins with self-control. Before influencing other people, we must first learn to manage our own thoughts, emotions, and reactions. The person who controls their emotions often makes better decisions, and better decisions, repeated consistently over time, create stronger relationships, greater opportunities, and lasting influence. In the next chapter, we'll explore why strategic thinking often produces better results than acting too quickly, and how patience can become one of the most valuable skills in both life and leadership. As the book continues, Robert Greene introduces another principle that has shaped the success of leaders, rulers, military commanders, and influential individuals throughout history: the importance of strategic thinking. According to the author, many people spend their lives reacting to situations instead of preparing for them. They make decisions based on pressure, emotion, or urgency. As a result, they often solve today's problem while creating a much bigger problem for tomorrow. Robert Greene explains that people who achieve lasting influence usually think several steps ahead. Before making an important decision, they consider the possible consequences. They ask themselves how today's actions might affect tomorrow's opportunities. This habit of looking beyond the present often separates thoughtful leaders from impulsive decision makers. The author also points out that patience is one of the greatest advantages in any competitive environment. Modern life encourages quick reactions. Messages are answered immediately. Opinions are shared instantly. Decisions are often made without enough reflection. However, history repeatedly shows that many successful individuals were willing to slow down when the situation demanded careful thinking. Rather than rushing toward the first solution, they gathered information, observed the people involved, and waited until they understood the complete picture. Another lesson introduced in this chapter is the importance of avoiding unnecessary conflicts. Not every disagreement deserves your attention. Not every challenge requires an immediate response. The author believes that choosing where to invest your energy is just as important as deciding how to use it. People who constantly fight every battle often become distracted from their larger goals. Those who remain focused usually make greater progress over time. Robert Greene also explains that successful planning requires flexibility. No strategy works perfectly in every situation. Unexpected events will always occur. New opportunities may appear. Obstacles may force us to change direction. For this reason, a wise strategy is never completely rigid. It allows room for adjustment while keeping the long-term objective clear. Another valuable idea discussed in this section is the difference between reacting and responding. A reaction is immediate and emotional. A response is thoughtful and intentional. Although the difference may seem small, it often determines the quality of our decisions. People who develop the habit of responding rather than reacting usually avoid many unnecessary mistakes. The author encourages readers to make decisions based on observation instead of assumption. Gathering information before taking action often provides a significant advantage. A few extra moments of careful thinking can prevent problems that might otherwise take years to correct. History offers many examples of individuals who succeeded, not because they acted first, but because they acted at the right time. Timing, preparation, and patience often proved more valuable than speed alone. Perhaps the greatest lesson from this chapter is that power is rarely built through impulsive actions. It grows through careful planning, emotional discipline, and the ability to remain focused on long-term goals rather than temporary emotions. The people who think ahead often see opportunities long before others recognize them. And those opportunities, combined with patience and good judgment, frequently become the foundation of lasting success. In the next chapter, we'll explore why trust and credibility are essential for building long-term influence, and how consistent actions shape the way others choose to follow and support us. After exploring the importance of strategic thinking, Robert Greene explains that lasting influence is never built through power alone. It is built through trust. Many people believe that influence comes from authority, status, or wealth. While these qualities may attract attention, they rarely create genuine loyalty. People are far more willing to follow someone they trust than someone they simply fear. According to the author, credibility is earned through consistent behavior. Every promise that is kept, every responsibility that is fulfilled, and every decision made with integrity strengthens the confidence that others place in us. Trust cannot be demanded. It must be earned. And once it is earned, it becomes one of the most valuable forms of influence a person can possess. Robert Greene explains that successful leaders throughout history understood this principle. They recognized that people naturally support those who appear reliable, composed, and confident. This does not mean pretending to be perfect. Instead, it means behaving in a way that allows others to depend on your judgment. Another important lesson introduced in this chapter is the value of consistency. People feel comfortable with individuals whose actions remain predictable. When words and actions consistently match, relationships become stronger. However, when promises are repeatedly broken or behavior changes without reason, confidence begins to disappear. Rebuilding lost credibility is often far more difficult than building it in the first place. The author also encourages readers to avoid making promises they cannot keep. Many people attempt to impress others by agreeing to everything. At first, this may create a positive impression. But over time, failing to deliver weakens both reputation and trust. It is often wiser to make fewer promises and fulfill every one of them than to make many promises that remain unfinished. Another valuable lesson discussed in this section is the importance of listening. Influential people do not spend every conversation trying to prove how much they know. Instead, they ask thoughtful questions. They pay attention. They understand the concerns of others before offering solutions. This approach creates stronger relationships because people naturally appreciate those who genuinely listen. Robert Greene also explains that confidence should never become arrogance. Confidence attracts respect. Arrogance often creates distance. The strongest leaders remain open to learning, admit mistakes when necessary, and continue improving throughout their lives. Humility, combined with confidence, creates a balanced form of leadership that people are more willing to trust. Perhaps the greatest lesson from this chapter is that real influence cannot be forced. It grows gradually through honesty, consistency, patience, and mutual respect. The people who build trust over many years often discover that opportunities come to them naturally. Others seek their advice. Their opinions carry greater weight, and their presence inspires confidence without the need for constant recognition. As the book moves toward its conclusion, Robert Greene explains that people rarely lose influence because they lack intelligence or ability. More often, they lose it because of avoidable mistakes. These mistakes may appear small in the beginning, but over time they weaken reputation, damage relationships, and reduce opportunities. One of the most common mistakes is allowing the ego to make important decisions. When people become overly confident, they often stop listening to advice. They believe they already know everything they need to know. As a result, they overlook valuable information and underestimate potential challenges. The author reminds readers that confidence is valuable, but overconfidence can become a serious weakness. Another mistake is reacting emotionally during moments of conflict. Many people feel the need to respond immediately after hearing criticism or facing disagreement. They argue, they defend themselves, they try to prove they are right. According to Robert Greene, these emotional reactions often create larger problems than the original disagreement itself. Remaining calm gives you time to think clearly and choose a response that serves your long-term interests rather than your temporary emotions. The author also warns against speaking more than necessary. Many people reveal their plans, opinions, and intentions too quickly. Although honesty is important, sharing every thought at every moment can sometimes reduce your flexibility and expose your strategy before the right time. Learning when to speak and when to remain silent is an important part of effective communication. Another lesson discussed in this chapter is the danger of seeking constant approval. People who make every decision based on pleasing others often lose sight of their own goals. Robert Greene encourages readers to value respect more than popularity. Respect is earned through consistency, competence, and good judgment. Popularity often changes with circumstances. The author also explains that impatience prevents many people from achieving lasting success. When progress feels slow, they abandon their plans and begin chasing new opportunities before giving the previous ones enough time to succeed. This cycle of constantly changing direction makes long-term growth difficult. Patience, on the other hand, allows experience and consistency to produce meaningful results. Another common mistake is refusing to adapt. The world changes continuously. New technologies emerge. Industries evolve. Relationships develop. People who refuse to learn or adjust often fall behind, even if they were once highly successful. Flexibility allows influence to remain relevant as circumstances change. Perhaps the most important lesson in this chapter is that influence is not something we gain once and keep forever. It must be strengthened through daily actions, every conversation, every decision, every challenge, and every opportunity contributes to the way people remember us. Robert Greene encourages readers to remain curious, continue learning, and approach every situation with humility rather than certainty. The strongest influence belongs not to those who believe they know everything, but to those who never stop improving. Power is not something that belongs only to kings, presidents, or business leaders. According to Robert Greene, power exists wherever people interact. Every conversation, every negotiation, every friendship, every workplace, and every decision we make is influenced by human behavior. Throughout this book, the author encourages readers to become more aware of these invisible dynamics, not to manipulate others, but to better understand the world around them. One of the first lessons we explored was that influence begins with understanding people. The more we understand human behavior, emotions, and motivation, the better our decisions become. We also learned that reputation is one of the most valuable assets anyone can build. It takes years to earn, only moments to damage. And once lost, it is often difficult to recover. Another important lesson was the value of emotional control. Many opportunities are lost, not because people lack ability, but because they react impulsively during moments of anger, fear, or frustration. Patience allows better judgment, and better judgment often leads to better outcomes. The book also reminds us that successful people rarely rely on luck alone. They observe carefully. They think strategically. They prepare before acting. Instead of focusing only on today's problems, they consider the long-term consequences of every important decision. We also explored the importance of trust. Lasting influence cannot be forced. It grows through honesty, consistency, reliability, and respect. People naturally place greater confidence in those whose actions consistently match their words. Finally, Robert Greene encourages readers to remain students throughout life. Human nature continues to surprise us. Every experience teaches something new. The people who continue learning, adapting, and improving are often the ones who maintain influence for the longest time. Perhaps the greatest lesson in the entire book is that true power begins with self-mastery. Before leading others, we must first learn to lead ourselves. Before expecting discipline from others, we must practice discipline ourselves. Before asking for trust, we must become trustworthy. Real influence is not created through fear. It is created through wisdom, through patience, through thoughtful decisions, and through understanding the people around us. When these qualities come together, influence becomes something that grows naturally rather than something that must be demanded. In the end, The 48 Laws of Power is not simply a book about gaining influence. It is a book about understanding human behavior, making wiser decisions, and approaching relationships with greater awareness. Whether in business, leadership, or everyday life, these lessons remind us that success is rarely determined by talent alone. It is shaped by the choices we make, the reputation we build, the patience we practice, and the character we develop over time. Thank you for joining this complete summary of the 48 Laws of Power. If there is one lesson worth remembering, it is this: the greatest form of power is not controlling other people. It is learning to control yourself. Because the person who masters their own thoughts, emotions, and actions has already taken the first step toward lasting influence.